Alright, this one's just going to be a lot of bullshit. As per usual. Where am I right now? On my little journey. Just started doing phenylalanine on its L-phenylalanine on its own. Phenylalanine. I'll be honest, I'm not feeling it as much as I did the tyrosine, and well, I'll go into it a bit in a second. Obviously, seems to be the thing I keep doing at the moment. So I'll go into it in a minute. But I started out on just one tablet, which is 500 milligrams. Not mils, that's confusing. And then the next day, which was yesterday, I tried 2 tablets, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Again, wasn't really feeling much. Today I've just done 2 in the morning, going to try 1 later. And the reasons I'm going up is actually, I'll cover in a second. Anyway, actually, a rather serious oversight at the potential cause of my potential dopamine imbalance/depletion would be my previous relaxed approach to alcohol consumption. I say relaxed, more like my Stockholm syndrome with alcohol. I would also like to clarify that PEA, phenylethylamine, would not be the genius molecule, but phenylalanine would be, as it would be the precursor to both PEA and dopamine, 2 factors I believe are essential to traditional genius minds. So PEA would be I think it would be PEA in combination with dopamine, and the precursor to both of those is phenylalanine. The common denominator is phenylalanine. Phenylalanine, come on guys. Phenyl groups, Jesus. Tyrosine, what's on it? Unsure about lasting effects. That was me maybe making a list of... Oh well, I'm not doing that anymore. The WHO, the World Health Organization's analysis of protein and amino acid requirements for adults. I wanted to talk about this. This was basically what I used to... they did a meta-analysis of all the... to try and work out what the recommended allowance of protein and the various amino acid intake should be. And it was really sections 8 and 14 that I was interested in. I had a little read through them, and pretty interesting, apart from the fact that the 2 that I'm most interested in, phenylalanine and tyrosine, they don't differentiate in the total amount taken per day. So it's roughly 1,750 milligrams per day for someone who weighs 70 kilograms of phenylalanine and tyrosine. And, well, maybe they mean of each, but I really highly doubt that. I think what they mean is, and I'm pretty sure, of course I've read it, the reason that I don't think they were able to give distinct amounts for each is because tyrosine, they really only studied phenylalanine, and the studies that they covered really only studied phenylalanine, but in some cases they had adequate supply of tyrosine already matched, but I don't know. Anyway, so that's why I'm. Yes, I think I'll write it in a moment what my predicted final dosages will be when I have concluded my experiments with a subject size of 1 and without any real scientific method to it. But I think I'll probably end up doing something like 1,500 milligrams of phenylalanine, 250 milligrams of tyrosine a day. Something like that to get to the 1,750, and then obviously should be getting some more from food if my body's working properly. What if this is where I started getting fucking stupid again. What if when an electron absorbs a photon, it is momentarily transported into a higher dimension? What impact would this have on the double slit experiment? Conduct thought experiment for a 2D subject in a 2D universe who believes electrons to only exist in 2 dimensions, but really they are capable of entering our 3rd dimension. How would the second equivalent... Jesus Christ. How would the 2D equivalent of the double slit experiment pan out if when the electron is observed by absorbing an electron, that's assuming that the only way you observe something is by hitting it with photons, is absorbing an electron. What the fuck? By absorbing a photon is what I meant there. It temporarily enters our dimension and can go around any obstacles only present in 2 dimensions. This is kind of prompted by, those games. There's that game that's been kind of popular where you're in a 3D world, but then you can temporarily enter a 4th dimension, and the world kind of shifts angle. Obviously, they're trying to represent a 4D world in 3D, and you can kind of go round walls and stuff. Anyway, Stupid ideas continued. What if electrons exist as waves in our dimensions, but when they absorb enough energy in the form of photons, they temporarily become particles in a higher dimension? Like water, if energy is introduced to remove a droplet from the large body of water, it can be suspended above the surface. Then, when the droplet is dropped onto the surface, it becomes part of the body of water, but leaves traces of itself in the form of waves upon the surface, propagating outwards from where it contacted the water, with the surface of the water in this analogy being our dimension of comprehension. Wow, Ollie, that is just fascinating. I mean, that really is the stupidest thing. I realise that at the moment my reasoning for my argument that subjective experience is all that matters, and the purpose of life is to enjoy it, is reliant on at least one logical fallacy. Now, the fallacy means that this doesn't mean the statement isn't true at all, just that some of the reasoning used doesn't provide the evidence it claims to. I believe it's a kind of argument from nature fallacy, or some sort of appeal to tradition, which I don't think is one, but, I think it's probably the argument from nature. So I'm effectively saying the only reason anyone ever does anything is to alter their conscious state. And I'm saying because of that makes it, our purpose should be to. So, but I think the idea behind it just needs to be reasoned better. But I think the principle stands. But I can't really say that unless I back it up. Anyway, I believe Sam has actually spoken about this far better than I ever will, and I think he phrased it as something along the lines of objective. He used the phrase something like subjective objective facts or something like that. I think I'm misquoting him entirely. Anyway, or objectively true subjective experiences. Anyhow, the reason I believe there was something to be learned from the subjective experiences of others was because the very thing I was seeking to understand can only be understood through the experience of the subject experiencing it. In order to understand what it feels like to be on crystal meth, you really only have three options. You can try it for yourself, you can trust the descriptions given by people who have experienced it, or you can understand it by analogy and extrapolation of your own experiences, although I think this will likely yield the least accurate results, and is kind of an offshoot of the second anyway. And this goes for any subjective experience. And so to someone who is unable to experience or remember what it's like to experience joy or pleasure, these are the only options available to them. To use those methods outlined above. Initial prediction of what I will eventually follow. 500 milligrams L-phenylalanine, not DL. Twice daily, summing to 1,000 milligrams per day, and then possibly up to 1,500 milligrams. I think that's really what I'm going to have to do, because 1,000 didn't seem to do much on its own. Anyway, 250 milligrams L-tyrosine daily, although current tablets offer 500 milligrams per tablet, so we'll take one every other day. It doesn't quite work out because of, bioavailability and therapeutic windows and all that. B vitamin complex, containing multiple vitamins, including majority of B vitamins plus vitamin C, but focusing on its inclusion of 5 milligrams of vitamin B6, and investigate tryptophan. I think tryptophan's something like 1,500 milligrams a day, something like that. Could be entirely wrong with that one. All these discoveries about the importance of neurotransmitter levels and facilitation. Well, I say discoveries. All my ideas about the importance of neurotransmitter levels and facilitation, and the necessity of ingestions of Jesus Christ, and the necessity of ingestion of essential amino acids to enable these processes, and the similarities between both the structure of these molecules and their physiological effects when compared to mind-altering drugs, has made me realise that healthy, non-depressed humans are permanently slightly high. You're kind of high just on your body's own ability to extract the necessary amino acids and convert them into neurotransmitters. So, the neurotransmitters make you kind of high in a way. Any fucking way. Perhaps one of the reasons religion is given credence in spite of its conflict with science is the fundamentally opposite approaches the two take towards their own abilities. Science humbly claims that even with condemning evidence that we can't conceive of ever being any more convincing, it still acknowledges the possibility that it could be wrong in light of new evidence. Religion makes the reverse claim, and brashly says that it needs not provide any evidence and has no real power that can be demonstrated at any given moment, and yet is all-powerful and all-knowing, and makes specific claims of an ultimate truth of the universe. Okay, this is obviously a kind of straw man thing. I know I'm doing a bit of straw man, but many people seem to think this is the case, that religion provides all the answers without any of the evidence. And it is the modesty of science that believers try to use against it. Well, not all believers, obviously, but some people often say the thing like, science doesn't even knows nothing for certain. And then somehow anyway. The obvious rebuttal to that is it knows everything infinitely more, well, not infinitely, 1 billion times more certain. I'm just pulling numbers out, but so many times more certain than religion claims to know anything. Well, no, not claims to, but can actually demonstrate that it knows. Whilst science holds more demonstrable capability than any other field of inquiry, it explicitly and repeatedly, by definition, preaches its own limitations, through attempting to disprove its own predictive power. Religion refuses to provide any evidence in support of its claims, and yet claims to know, with absolute certainty, all that should ever be needed to know. Sometimes. Some people. Fucking hell. What a fucking minefield. Oh, here we go. This is the bullshit back again. What if the universe itself is a higher dimensional object passing through to 3 dimensions? Or maybe this is what space-time is. The singularity preceding the Big Bang was when the higher dimensional object, that is the universe, first made contact with the dimensions we can comprehend. Then it appears to expand in these dimensions as it passes through. And maybe the extra dimension is one of time, and so as the universe appears to be expanding, the 2 points at which measurements of the size of the universe are taken are associated with points in time because they can be understood as 3-dimensional cross-sections of this higher dimensional object, which is space-time. And this would make time travel both backwards or forwards, impossible to anyone who wishes to experience it in 3 dimensions, as certain parts of the higher dimensional object are not in contact with the 3-dimensional plane. This is assuming there's only one 3-dimensional plane that it passes through anyway. And the object is passing through in one direction, so only the sections which have not passed through yet are the only ones that will literally come to pass. And those which have already penetrated and passed through shall never pass through again. And the shape needn't necessarily be a predictable one like a hypersphere. It could be an odd indeterminate higher dimensional equivalent of a 3-dimensional shape, which expands and contracts along its length, like an art noir vase or something, which might explain why the universe appears to expand at different rates over time, whilst time is consistent. Kind of contradict myself a little bit there. To try and visualize how this might occur to a high-dimensional observer, we can again approximate by imagining a 2-dimensional plane, but really this plane is imaginary. It's only when the 3-dimensional universe passes through it that anything exists in this plane, and as we pass a 3-dimensional sphere through this 2D plane, the universe appears to come into existence, and as it passes through, it appears to grow to any 2D beings that are contained within the confines of this 3D sphere. And then eventually, the sphere will pass more than halfway through, and to any beings inside it would appear to begin shrinking, until eventually it passes through entirely, and that once imaginary 2-dimensional universe would cease to exist, until that same sphere passed through another imaginary 2D plane, and the universe would appear to follow the exact same timeline as the other 2D plane experienced. How does this map onto our experience? Maybe time for us is just our 3D equivalent of the imaginary 2D plane, and it may seem to some like this can't be the case because we have knowledge of the past and can make predictions or imagine what the future entails. However, all these thoughts and ideas are encased within and are components of the 3-dimensional equivalent of the 2D planar cross-section, which we experience at any given moment. Okay, a few things there. So really, time travel might be possible if you could just shift your cross section of the 4D plane. So really, there isn't. I don't know how to explain this. So when you imagine like a 3D object passing through, just floating through this. So let's say 4 dimensions become 3 dimensions and 3 dimensions become 2 dimensions, right? So there's this 4D object which becomes 3D, obviously, and it's floating through 4D space, which becomes 3D space. And that makes it that contains the entire universe, right? Now, when it passes through a 2D plane, which isn't really there, well, 3D plane, which is a 2D plane, which isn't really there. It's just it kind of is there. It's there and it isn't there. Anyway, that allows everything to be contained within everything that is in the universe. So everything that's in the universe is all one thing. But which would make it a truly deterministic universe. I mean, every micro instance would be determined to the smallest degree and the highest degree as well. And then, as this 2D plane of experience, I guess, I don't really know what to call it, but that provides a cross section of the space-time, which is the universe. But the universe is just travelling through in one direction, which is why you can't reverse time. But then there's no reason to say that that universe won't be experienced again in another 2D plane. So as it passes through, it could even be passing through multiple ones at once, experiencing different slices of the universe. And maybe it's constantly. Maybe this is what we've always believed, that it's well, not necessarily in this context, but the past and future and present are all happening simultaneously at once in different 2D cross sections. Yeah. Anyway, I can't bother to fucking talk about it. I don't think I'm even saying anything new. I don't think I'm bringing anything to the fucking hell, man. Right. And the last one I have to say is just something I said before, but I'm not sure if I said it in this way. Ignorance of ignorance is bliss, right? I think I did say it before, but I think the problem is that the ignorance on its own isn't bliss. In fact, ignorance on its own can be knowledge of your ignorance can be torture, especially if it's knowledge of your inability to rectify your ignorance. So another thing I'm thinking about is that the greatest minds we've ever had are only brilliant to all the minds that have come before them. I think it should be pretty clear by now that eventually, I reckon within, I've said before, 50 years, that we'll have minds better than any mind we've ever had, and they'll be man-made. And I don't know whether it's true, but I like to think it, because we're so limited by everything that we are. What would be the greatest mind that we've ever had? Someone like Tesla, someone like Newton, someone like Einstein, John von Neumann, people often say, Feynman, mainly physicists, clearly. Great philosophers, maybe Aristotle, Plato. But really, they only seem so brilliant compared to the average, which is so average, obviously. But there's the upper bound is really so marginally. It's such a marginal improvement on the average that it's. Obviously, it allowed them to do great things relative to everyone else. But really, it's like the difference we can expect to see is going to be fucking crazy. Right, I can't even be bothered to go into the whole idea there. I'll do. Oh yeah, there's a new IMS. Oh, great.